All right.
All right.
Yes.
I'd like to call to order the July 9th, 2020 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission and Historic Commission of the Village of East Dundee. Catherine, could we have the roll call, please?
Scarpelli,
Here.
Holloman,
Here.
Meyer, Apke,
Here.
Denick,
Here.
Bernstein, Stock,
Here.
Musket,
Here.
Brewer.
Here. Okay, so we have enough for a quorum. I'm not sure what the exact count was, but it was 7, I think, wasn't it?
Yes.
And first item is the approval of minutes from our prior meeting of June 4th, 2020. Anybody have any comments, or could I hear a motion to approve those minutes, please?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from July 7th. No, that's not right. July 4th. That's
June
not right.
20th, June 4th.
June 4th, thank you. I've been locked up too long.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, we'll skip over the public comment. Well, unless we have anybody online now that wants to make a public comment regarding issues not on our agenda. And we'll ask again when we get a little bit more on. So that's the Historic Commission discussion on the motion to recommend approval, denial of certificate of appropriateness for D&J's one cut above the rest window decals. That building's on 1 East Main Street. I don't think Diane is here. Is Chris here? Chris
Yeah,
or
I'm
Brad?
here. Yeah, Diane is working. She wasn't able to make the
Right,
meeting.
I talked to her today. I talked to her today also. So.
Yeah. So yeah, she's proposing the 2 decal signs, one on the south side of the building facing 72, the window closest to the river, and then one on the east side of the east side of the building, the one on the corner closest to 72. It's a decal sign, so it's not a solid sign. It's just the letterings that and cutouts that she has proposed.
Chris, will that be on the exterior of the building or the interior?
It's on the inside of the glass.
Okay, I guess I'm wondering, why is this coming before us? Every other window painted on signage has never really come before us before. It's only things affixed to the exterior of the building.
Well, whether it's glass or our code, the way our code reads, if it's a sign that can be seen from the outside, even if it's on glass or on the inside of the window, it's still considered a sign.
Okay, I'm just unaware that many of the other businesses have come forward.
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think because this is, all the construction that was going on there, I made them aware of all the process they have to go through.
Okay.
So
And her explanation to me was this is letters only, white letters on the clear glass. There's no big square background to it or anything else. Is that right?
correct. That's correct.
Okay. Fine.
I think is it black letters or is it white? I don't know.
She told me it was white letters.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll make a motion. We approve the certificate of appropriateness for D&J one cut above the rest at 1 East Main Street.
I'll second that.
Scarpelli,
Yes.
Holloman,
Yes.
Meyer, Apke,
Yes.
Denick,
Yes.
Bernstein, Stock,
Yes.
Musket,
Yes.
Brewer.
Yes. Okay, we've moved to our variance discussion. Do we have more people online or on the phones with us now?
Yes, we do have more via phone. I'm not sure that's a proper representation of anyone else who's trying to participate.
Yes, I just got on the phone too and wasn't able to log in normally, but was able to get the instructions on how to do that. I've had a couple of people from other parts of the town call me on how to go about this, and I'm hoping that they're going to get in, but I wasn't able to tell them how to do it. So seems to me like it would be a good idea if we maybe postponed it or rescheduled.
I don't think, I'd rather not try to postpone this. We postponed it once already. You know, we owe the owners a decision one way or the other here. So
We do, but we also owe the residents a choice.
a chance to, yeah, right.
Do we have any idea of what the public is feeling about this? Has anybody talked to anybody? Do we?
Due to the Open Meetings Act, we're really not permitted to do
We
that.
can't.
Okay,
It's a
That's
public
why
hearing, so we
need
have to
this
hear
hearing. That's
we
why
have
we
to
need
follow
the
the
public
rules.
hearing.
okay. Well, I was just wondering if
Kinda
we
hard
could
to have a
wait
public
longer
meeting.
or,
Seems like it's kind of hard to have a public meeting when you don't have the public on the line.
That
My
doesn't
opinion
seem,
is that
I agree too, but
there is a
and I don't know how
phone
many,
on the agenda.
I know of 4 people missing.
Jennifer, please.
There's a phone number on the agenda that works. So logic would tell you, you use the link. If you can't get the link, you enter the number. If you can't get that to work, you would call the phone number. I think I would just echo John. Obviously, this is a contentious issue. I do want to move this forward. We just need to consider the variance aspect of this, which I'm not sure is so much in dispute as is other matters. So I would like to see this move forward. I mean, we do have the village attorney on the line. Maybe he would weigh in on where we should do from here.
I think it would be logical to see what he has to say.
Yeah, thank you. This
John.
is Greg Smith, the village attorney here. I've looked at the agenda, and the agenda has a clickable Zoom meeting link. The clickable link on the agenda takes you to a different web page than the text that appears on the agenda for that link. If you put your mouse over the link on the agenda, you'll see that it ends with a Zoom conference labeled 8879, while the text on the agenda has the correct meeting ID ending in 9179. If someone were to copy and paste the text of the agenda into their web browser, instead of clicking on it, they could get into the meeting. Similarly, when you get down to computer audio, it says if you are unable to join via computer audio, meaning the people who click on it, use the following dial-in number and meeting ID. And that contains the correct dial-in number and access code, which I confirmed earlier, meaning that anyone who has the agenda in front of them can join the meeting by phone because the correct access code is there as well. It's in fact in 2 places on the agenda. So I think the village has provided adequate notice from a legal perspective of the meeting.
Well, my suggestion is that it's just rather cumbersome, and not everybody might not know how to go about navigating through those steps. And I don't think anybody on the line right now is questioning it because we're already on the line. But for those who aren't, that's who I'm speaking for. I mean,
Yeah, I would simply point out that the agenda itself states that if you are unable to join via computer audio, use the following dial-in number and meeting ID, and then it has the 312 number and the meeting access code, which are correct. So the agenda itself contains the alternative mechanism. If someone's clicking on the link and it's not working because the underlying URL is messed up, they can still get in through the meeting ID and access code. I'd just like that to be clear on the record as the commission decides what they want to do.
Thank you. Any other direction from staff?
I mean,
your
I would
meeting,
agree,
John.
I would agree with Jennifer's saying that there's various ways that they can get in besides that link. And myself, I actually never use a link, I type it in. So I think that the opportunity for the public to get in is there, just as Attorney Smith said as well.
We do also have to remember, there's no final decision tonight. So we will have the board meeting where they can come and be heard as well, although it's not in the public hearing forum. There is a public comment period and they will be heard there as well.
Okay, the first question is the petitioner online.
He is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes?
Yes, he is.
Okay, fine. Well, I guess that we're getting the direction to open a, just a minute, I got to get my list right here. To open a public hearing regarding a variation request at 509 Max Welton Road, East Dundee, requesting a variation from section 157.031, capital A, 6, small a of the zoning chapter of the East Dundee Village Code requiring a front yard setback in the E Estate District to not be less than 35 feet in depth. Can I hear a motion to open a hearing, please?
So move.
I'll second.
Scarpelli,
No.
Solomon,
Yes.
Meyer, Apke,
Yes.
Demick,
Yes.
Bernstein, Schock,
Yes.
Musket,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes. Okay, to start this off, could we have the petitioners actually give us a brief review of why they want this variation request, please?
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
Okay. I'm Mike Montague. Sorry, Patience Eckler will hopefully make it a little later. We are the residents of 509 Max Welton. Thank you for considering our request for a variance on the front yard setback. Due to the topology of our property as shown in the median packet, this is the only area to put an accessory building due to our large elevation changes. The purpose of the variance is to keep as much of the natural ambiance of this great neighborhood. The 35-foot front yard setback will push the accessory building directly onto a beautiful line of mature spruce trees. We would like to save as many of the quote-unquote good trees such as oaks, maples, cherry, hickory, and chestnut trees that are indigenous to our property. We have done everything we can to remove all the wood, the weed, buckthorn, and other invasive plants and trees to beautify the area. In the end, if we have to, it will cause us great pain to have to take down the beautiful line of mature trees, but unfortunately we will. I contacted Davey Tree and had an arborist come out to observe the condition of the trees, and he said they were healthy. He did recommend we take down the 2 fir trees that are in bad condition, but the spruce trees are good. We already started staking corners and clearing the area that was previously approved by the village for building without any variances. When we noticed we would be encroaching on this line of spruce trees, we recognize we will have to remove healthy trees, and it is our intention to fill in some bare areas to maintain the unique characteristics of our property. We take pride in our home and we love the city of East Dundee. Our original design for the accessory building was to mimic the depot that is in downtown East Dundee, but unfortunately we couldn't make it work. You may hear some opposition about the accessory building, but all I can say is that it is needed. It takes a lot to maintain and make such a unique area thrive. Everything is larger than normal, including things like mowers, lawn vacuums, sprayers, trailers, chippers, log splitters, machines, tools, and I can keep going on, but an area 8 or 10 times the size of a normal residential property and full of giant mature trees requires more. We enjoy doing the work ourselves, and that is reflected in the quality of our work. I'm sure there are plenty of neighbors that agree we've done a good job, and hopefully you will hear from them. In the meeting packet, the village has already done their fact finding and states, should these conditions reoccur on a development with the same zoning classification, the basis for the variation would be applicable. when in fact a similar variance was approved in 1990 for a property a couple houses down at 424 Max Welton with a front yard setback of 5 feet. So past precedent shows allowing a 20-foot setback is acceptable without doing damage to the area. Thank you for listening, and we appreciate your consideration in this matter.
Thank you. Does anybody on the commission have any questions for Mike?
John, I'll defer until after the residents speak.
Okay, fine. So do we have any residents now any other East Dundee residents who would like to speak at this time?
Yes.
Please identify yourself and give us your address and let us know who you are. For the record.
My name is Danuta Bialecka, and I live at 431 Bonnie Dundee Road, which is very close to Ashland Avenue. And we love walking through the woods and around Mr. Mike's property. There is a lot of beautiful greenery and the serenity, and it's just a beautiful wildlife. So we enjoy walking that path. Now, I'm trying to visualize now, how would the view and our walks be affected by this, from what I read and understand, a huge structure that does not conform to the characteristics of our estate, beautiful estate area. I just cannot imagine how big it would be. And if we are talking variance, it would be so close to the road. Is there a reason that this structure should be so close to the road? That's one of my questions. Now, this would definitely affect the wildlife. It would affect the greenery. Lots of trees were cut down already. And from what I hear, more of them would be cut. So that area, that particular small area, would definitely change its character totally. So my husband and I, we are definitely against the variance, because we think that having 2.5 acres of land, beautiful, beautiful land, there is no reason for building such a huge structure so close to the road. So we can see it even more as we walk our dogs. So that is, I just would like to preserve the beauty of that area, that tranquility. This is the reason we moved in here 17 years ago, because we fell in love with that area, the nature and the wildlife that we appreciate. So we just don't want anything that does not conform to the character of this estate area. And sometimes I'm just thinking that maybe Mike and our neighbors, Mike and Patience, maybe they just don't realize that this is an estate area. Then this is not a farmland where you can build huge structures that you need. But this is not, in our opinion, this is not the area where this should be built. Because it's just too large. It's so huge. It will be an eyesore, truly an eyesore to all people who enjoy walking that route. And then I believe that would set a precedence for the whole village. I mean, if we allow this structure to be built, then everybody else, all our neighbors, they can come up with their ideas of building huge structures just right in front of their properties. And then once we set this precedent, then we will all lose, because we'll have to fight over everybody's request to build something that they just want to build. So is that the answer? Does this give us a message that everybody can build whatever they want on their property? I don't think so. So we definitely, I mean, we are against the variance. There is no need for it. And also against the building itself,
Thank you. I just want to remind other speakers that we're not actually talking about the building. We're talking purely about the location of the building. Variance request is only for 5 feet closer to the street on one side and 10 feet closer to the street on the other side. That's what our discussion is about. Further discussions, I'm sure, can be had at other village meetings.
Well, I understand that, but the two issues are at hand, really, because just a few feet, which the variance is asking for, yes, it is an issue. But the bigger issue for people who live here and have lived here for a long time, they just don't want this huge structure. So that this issue probably is more important for us than just those few feet away from the street. And I don't see a reason for that either. So when someone has a 2.5 acres, can't they build this structure if it is within the village code? And I doubt that too. They can build it closer to their house. And this structure is even bigger than their home. I mean, I am not an expert here. I just know what I like, and I just know what I would like to keep in this area, in this beautiful area. So that's just my opinion. And then another question is, this huge structure, what is it going to be used for?
Ma'am, I'm sorry, but this is not what we're discussing. If you want to discuss the size of the structure, the uses of the structure, that needs to be done in another forum, which would be the village board meeting that this item is going to be considered on. You know, it's up to the village staff to decide whether this building is within our code limitations. And you know, you may feel it's not acceptable. That's fine. That's your opinion. Mm-hmm. But right now, we are only talking about the variance request to where the location of the building would be.
So,
okay.
I'm only speaking for my husband and myself. So just to be clear, we are against the variance because we don't see a reason for a variance, such variance, when someone has such big, beautiful lot where they can build this structure if indeed it will be permitted somewhere else, closer to the house. So we are against the variance.
Okay, thank you.
That's my summary.
Chairman Brewer?
Yes.
This is Frank Scarpelli. Yes. I think we're marching down a dangerous road here, limiting conversation. The applicants are asking for a variance for a building. If the public wants to know how the building is going to be used and how it's made up, I think they're entitled to that. I don't understand why we would limit. So all we're supposed to do here is whether they can have their 15-foot variance, and we're not supposed to ask any questions about the building or how they're going to use it. I think that is not in compliance with the Public Meeting Act.
Thank you, Mr. Scarpelli. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your opinion, Frank, but once again, we are discussing the variance here, not discussing other issues.
But
I think the Attorney General is going to hear about this. Go ahead.
Shouldn't we?
Well, I mean, then we have our attorney online. Give us your opinion, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I would say that your conversation and public comment and the deliberations and recommendation from this body tonight need to be centered around the standards for variations in the village code and zoning ordinance. And the question is, I believe one of the issues here that was raised by the resident is whether the variation, if granted, would alter the essential character of the locality, which is one of the 3 primary standards you are to apply. And then with regard to hardship, there's a list of additional ones. The question of the structure, its appearance, its use, and its location are all interlinked in a way. I think it's reasonable for the body to hear some details about the uses, about the look of the structure, for instance, but the chair is correct that this commission is making a recommendation about the siting of the structure, which has to be the core of the conversation. The other details may be discussed, but they are certainly not your primary consideration, because the variation is what's before you. The variation relates to the siting of the structure, not its uses.
Greg, could I ask you then to further describe or comment on what constitutes a hardship?
The zoning, yes, certainly, Trustee Lineham. The zoning ordinance describes 6 factors to determine if there is a hardship. And I can read these out. It's probably the easiest way to do it. Number 1, the particular physical surroundings, shape, or topographical conditions of the specific property would bring a particular hardship upon the owner, as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the regulations were strictly enforced. Number 2, the conditions upon which the petition for variation is based would not be generally applicable to property within the same zoning classification, here meaning the estate zoning district. Number 3, the purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to make more money out of the property. Number 4, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person presently having an interest in the property. Number 5, the granting of the variation will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property or improvements in the neighborhood in which the property is located. Or 6, the last one, the proposed variation will not impair an adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property or substantially increase the danger of fire or otherwise endanger the public safety or substantially diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood.
Okay, so then based on that, I'm seeing Mr. Montague's suggestion that he wanted the variance so he could save a row of spruce trees. And I'm kind of curious to know, would that row of spruce trees block his view from his home to this accessory building if they were to remain?
No, they wouldn't actually. I mean, it might actually just block the cupolas on top, but that's about it.
Okay, so so you're saying that the trees, the spruces that you're trying to save are not going to either block the view or save the view. It's not going to make a difference.
No.
So
no,
where's the hardship?
It's just
where's the hardship?
Yeah, it's just keeping the area to look as it is. I mean, it's exactly what was just discussed before. They want to keep the area, so we're just trying to make it look good still.
Well, yeah, but you're doing it at the expense of your neighbors in that you're pushing it further towards the road and further away from your house. It seems to me like the hardship is being borne by those around you.
Thank you. That's what my opinion is. It's just going to be closer to the road so we can see it better as we walk.
I mean, there's no mistaking that the footprint of this structure is going to be significant, but it's also difficult for me to understand how that couldn't be accomplished with a 2.5 acre property without a variance. I guess I'm just not understanding.
If I could make a suggestion to the chair, this is Greg Smith. Chair, you were beginning to go through the residents who were present that wanted to provide testimony.
Right.
We got through the first resident. Perhaps it's time to continue through that, and then the conversation could ensue after that.
I agree. Is there any other, other than Trustee Lyman, is there any other East Dundee residents who would like to make a comment?
Yes, good evening. My name is Vera Jarecki, and I live at 619 Ashland Avenue, directly across from this corner that we were discussing. And I've lived here for 30 years. I'm probably the longest living resident in this neighborhood. And I was kind of involved in a similar situation about 20 years ago. But it was on my own property, and we wanted to build, you know, my ex-husband at the time wanted to build a structure similar to this. And I told him, why did you move to this neighborhood? I'm kind of in agreement with Danuta, you know, that this neighborhood is an estate area. And I know we're supposed to be talking about the variance issue, but I think that the residents were invited to come in to this meeting and express how we actually feel about a structure like this in our neighborhood. And I'm a resident of East Dundee 30 years. You know, I knew all the Raycows and the Howards and the Betty Gelbachs and everybody in this neighborhood. And if those folks were around today, we wouldn't even be discussing this. I'm really quite disappointed with I think the village's approach to dealing with the question of ordinance, whether it's according to ordinance, whether it's not in compliance with the ordinance, whether there was a permit issued, whether there wasn't a permit issued. You know, it seems like the residents don't really know many of the, you know, the details of all of the, you know, events that have transpired in regards to this particular structure or the variance or any of this. And, you know, I also agree with Danuta in the sense that this is an estate area. If you do build some sort of shed, it shouldn't be larger than a 3-car garage. I know you made reference to another garage on Maxwellton. That is a garage next to a home. It is not a storage facility. So a 3-car garage is a 3-car garage. It's not a 3-semi garage. And I don't understand, you know, I think that I'm against the variance because the variance would allow a structure that's massive. And I just don't think a massive structure like that belongs in my neighborhood. And I can even say my neighborhood because I've been here for as long as I have. And I've seen people come and go. And I see people come to this neighborhood who say, wow, this is like a jewel in the rough. We don't even know this neighborhood exists in East Dundee because it's hidden away. It's so beautiful and peaceful. It's a sanctuary full of greenery and wildlife. And it's not a place for a barn. I'm sorry. You know, I just can't. I think of Betty and my conversations with Betty Gelbach over the years and how she told me over many times that hopefully when she's long and gone and her property is sold, no one's going to build a structure on that corner because that was her favorite corner. She looked out her windows. We would sit there and have tea and we would look out that window and we would look at those trees. And I feel upset for Betty. I feel upset for Betty's legacy. I feel upset about the legacy of this neighborhood. A barn like that belongs in some area where you have 5 acres of land and you don't have neighbors directly across the street from you. Thank you very much for your time. I think my son would like to chime in at this point.
Thank you. Whoever's next, could you please identify yourself and
how's it going? My name is Jeremy Jarecki. So going back to, I think what Jeff was bringing up earlier about the spruce trees, I guess with the variance in place, from Mike's point of view, with those trees in front of the building and the portico on that side, it's going to look great for him. You know, and with this structure coming close to the road and almost like a 270 degrees on this corner here, it's going to be fully exposed to everyone else. If we want to create a natural look, we need as much space between the building and the road as possible to plant, you know, more vegetation, more trees. One little skinny tree that you put down there is just not going to cut it. You need the space there. That's what creates the natural fit. So that's why I'm completely against the variance. I don't think it's a natural fit. We spoke to Baird & Warner Realtor, and she was saying that it is going to affect our property values. I have that in writing. by 10 to 15%, becoming she called it an external obsolescence because, and I live on the 619 Ashland Avenue, so directly on the corner that looks at this structure, and it's going to be fully exposed to me. And, all that coverage has been ripped away, and I just don't see why a variance is necessary. I think if we want to keep the natural fit, then we shouldn't have a variance at all. It should just be built with the correct setbacks, and it should be filled in with the proper vegetation. And it's as simple as that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Christopher Pate, reside at 110 Briarwood Avenue in Carpentersville, but my house is on top of the hill, which overlooks the property at 500 Kenilworth and then also 509 Max Welton. I have a beautiful 3-season room where I relax, watch the wildlife, and this being built is totally going to affect the look, peace, and tranquility that me and my family have looking out our 3-season room. As far as the physical characteristics that Attorney Smith had outlined that you're supposed to be looking at for physical surrounding and shape, well, I think the testimony from all the other neighbors here kind of outlines that. The general applicable to the estate, I don't think it does because it has no business being here in an estate itself. This isn't a farming community. These people run ATVs up and down their property, causing noise. They've got chippers, they've got race cars, and all that stuff they should keep in the front of their house and move someplace else. Doesn't need to be back on my footstep or the other residents that are around here. As far as if there's a monetary gain, absolutely, there's a huge monetary gain from him. Should he go ahead and leave or sell his property, somebody who has a landscaping business or somebody else who wants a great big storage facility, you bet that's going to help him. It's not going to affect anybody else other than him. Everybody else will have their property values decrease. He definitely has an interest in seeing this go. I mean, the plight, as the chairman pointed out, the plight is just his view, when in reality, it's every other resident's plight that's going to suffer. It's definitely will detract from the neighborhood and our property values. And as far as, the light and air, I think you have to add in the flora and fauna with all the other wildlife that's around. My neighbor down there mentioned about the little old lady, the former resident. I've lived here almost 20 years. I walk in the area. I would see her out and about and watch and the beauty that's here. And there's a reason why people come to this area. One last thing, if you're talking about large buildings or accessory buildings, the property at 620 Wilmette here down the hill from me, they have a huge barn in the back, but they burrowed their barn into the berm in the back to make sure that they were in compliance with the ordinance that's on. Also, the property at 100 Hawthorne Lane, they also have a huge accessory building, and they follow the ordinance that's there. So I don't see why this is a hardship to Mr. Montague, and really it's everybody else in the neighborhood who's going to pay the price for his quote-unquote accessories. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
This is Maurice Martin. Am I being heard?
Yes.
John Maurice, can you hold on 1 minute? Can the person whose phone number is 847-987-0139 hit *6, please, on your phone to mute yourself? You keep breaking in with background noise.
Okay.
Yeah, they're muted.
Hello, could you introduce yourself again, please, and give us your address?
Maurice Martin and Nancy Wilson. We live at 424 Max Welton Road. And just for some perspective, we are the homeowners that were mentioned that received a variance 30 years ago when we put our 3-car garage up. I have a few questions. Am I allowed more than one?
No, go ahead.
I have more questions than comments. Besides the variance that is being discussed today, as with distance from the lot line. In every other way, does this proposed structure conform to what is allowable in estate zoning in every other way? And I've listed some things: design, use, size, height, landscaping, quality of materials, etc.
Okay, you have other questions?
That one first, please.
Hello? Am I still on?
I can hear you.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, John, you're still there, and I believe Maurice is still on. I think the applicant, I think Maurice's questions were directed towards the applicant.
No, I was asking the village. And the reason for this very particular question is I've heard other speakers use words like estate and flora and fauna and size and use and terms like barn. But I want to get it very technical. My question is, in estate zoning, what they have asked for, does it conform in every way except for the placement that they have requested, which is requiring the variance? And I'm confused based on what I've heard so far. I'd just like a clarification.
So staff, Chris Ranieri, the building official, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah. From a building standpoint and a permit standpoint, the plans were submitted, I believe, back in January and reviewed. The plans were approved. We were ready to issue the permit when they did the clearing, and that's when they decided that they wanted to try and move the building to save those trees. So the staff has concluded that the structure is an allowed structure on that lot.
It conforms in every way?
Yes.
Okay. How far, if the variance, with or without the variance, two options here, I'm asking two questions. How far will the structure be from the pavement? And the reason behind this line of questioning is it is correct. The variance that was given to my wife and I, we are 5 feet from our lot line, a front lot line, but we are in fact 40 feet from the pavement because the road doesn't sit in the center of its right-of-way. There's a 66-foot right-of-way around here for a 19-foot road. So how far is this going to be from the pavement? I'm sure a survey or something has been done. And I don't want to leave the meeting not understanding a real sense of how far from the road it's going to be. Is it 50 feet from the road, considering the edge of the pavement? And they're on two streets. So does anyone know that?
Chris, once again?
Yeah, the survey does not show the edge of the pavement.
I can answer that one.
Pardon me? He can answer that one. He may have physically measured it, but.
Yeah, I mean, I measured it, but I mean, there's no survey that shows it, but from Ashland Avenue, the road is 24 feet from our lot line. And from Kenilworth, the road is 21 feet from our lot line. So we'd be 41 feet away from Ashland Avenue and 45 or 50 feet away from Kenilworth.
Okay, so the structure, if the variance were granted, is still a substantial number of feet from the road. So it's a judgment for everyone to decide whether that's enough, but it's not like it's going to be built on the edge of the pavement. Thirdly, I guess, I'm familiar with these homeowners. I think that they've been in a process of restoring Betty Gilbach's house, and everything that they do is quality, and they are very hands-on. And though I appreciate that everybody wants trees, we do too. We have a lot. We have 30 some oak trees on our property, but I'm not entitled to tell someone what they can build when the estate zoning says this building can go on their property, and as you've stated, the question is 5 feet closer to the road or to the lot line technically. But I'm very uncomfortable with some of the conversation from my neighbors who are challenging people's hobbies, lifestyles to some degree. And in fact, they bought this property and they bought all the land, and our zoning says that they can put a structure there without the variance. And so I just want to go on record saying I'm uncomfortable with the line of some of the feedback that you're getting that is controlling people's use of their property to keep a park-like structure for everyone who wants to have a park-like structure. It's not a park, it's a private residence who owns that property, and it is substantial. And I think we need to acknowledge that. Thank you.
But don't you have,
Thank you.
don't you have to take into consideration the neighborhood in general? I mean, I mentioned before, this is Vera Jarecki again from 619 Ashland. We were going to put a structure up as well. And I told, I said, there's no way people come into this neighborhood because of the natural beauty not to put storage units on their property. And I stood against the structure and we never put it up. And there is no other structure like this in this neighborhood. I don't understand. I understand that they like, sports activities or, hunting or fishing. I do too. I like to fish, but we had equipment on our property. The neighbors didn't like it. They informed the village. The village sent over representatives, and we had to store our items elsewhere. We couldn't just have them laying around everywhere, or we had a choice of building a structure. And I said, no, we're not putting up a structure that's going to ruin the appearance of this neighborhood, and I have the right to say that I don't like something as well. I've lived here for a long time. I had to make similar decisions about storing my snowmobiles and storing my go-kart and storing my motorcycle elsewhere, because I did not want to put a big structure on the side of my home that would have taken out many trees and then been an eyesore for the rest of the neighborhood, because that's the reason why I moved to this neighborhood. And I have the right, as much as anyone else, to say that. And, I live right across the street. So my morning view is going to be the view of that structure. And if the assessor comes up and tells me, boy, your taxes are going up another $4,000 next year, guess what? I'm going to be in Kane County telling them, no ma'am, because there's an eyesore across the street. There's an eyesore across the street from my home, a home that I built 30 years ago. And that's, I think it's fair to be able to say that. I'm not telling anybody what to do with their toys. I'm not saying that their fun and games are different from mine. Everyone is entitled to do what they please. This is, the great US of A. So, but I also have the right to say that I don't think that this area should have a structure like that. It's different to have a 3-car garage, but a structure that is going to house trailers and race cars and all of that other stuff is going to be huge. And that's the first thing I'm going to see every morning when I get up. So I don't know. I think other neighbors as well. Bob Black, he feels the same way. Unfortunately, he's in Minnesota, so I'm his mouthpiece. And Lael Miller, who was our neighbor across the street, is no longer there. There is no neighbor there. So there's no one across the street who is also going to be looking out that window, looking at that structure to really voice their opinion on the topic.
Here, I don't want to, this is Maurice again, I don't want to challenge you personally, but when I hear you speak, I hear someone who's saying, I don't agree with the estate zoning limitations.
Well,
that
Maurice, I'm sorry, but I don't think we really even heard no one really explained to us what is allowed. You know, we had a meeting with a couple of the trustees, and we discussed, you know, some of, you know, is the ordinance really viable? Should the ordinance be questioned? Maybe it should be rewritten so that it's appropriate for the neighborhood, since we've already had issues similar to this with the other barn. Otherwise, as Danuta mentioned, this can go on and on and on, and there's going to be 20 barns in this neighborhood by, you know, in the next 10 years.
Yeah, if I could make a recommendation here, I believe there's still a number of residents who have yet to speak, and the chair may want to keep moving through that list so that everyone who wants to speak has an opportunity, you know, so if we run out of time and people are present who want to speak that haven't been able to, that would be unfair to them.
I understand.
Ma'am, we appreciate your opinion on this, ma'am, so thank you. Do we have anyone else who wants to speak?
I completely agree with my neighbor who just spoke, because we want our estate to stay the same as it has been for so many years.
This individual already talked.
Okay.
Get to people who haven't spoken.
All right.
Chairman Brewer, there is a Martin Wilson with his hand raised for a while now.
Let's let him speak then, please.
I'm Maurice Martin. So I raised my hand and I also asked for permission to speak. So I'll go back on mute. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that was the same person.
Yeah, my wife's last name is Wilson and my last name is Martin.
This is
Is
Robert.
there anyone who has not spoken so far?
This is Robert Schumacher. I live next door to Patience and Monty.
Okay.
To the east, and I just wanted to say that most of the conversation tonight sounds to be directed at the decision to allow the building in the first place, rather than the variance at question. And if that's the case, then it seems like, as somebody mentioned earlier, that needs to be discussed in a different forum. We're talking about the variance here, and I would like to agree with Maurice Martin that the Montague and Patience Eckler have been very, very conscientious neighbors. They've cleaned the property up considerably over what it was with Betty Galbach. Obviously, Betty was elderly and couldn't maintain the property as well as she would have liked. But the property has been cleaned up. It's beautiful, and what Patience and Monty are trying to do is to make it more beautiful by saving trees. It sounds like to me than to make it more of an eyesore by cutting trees down. So the question seems to be, are they improving the value of the property and the view of neighbors who walk by saving trees rather than cutting them down? And I would agree that they're trying to do their best job that they can, and that if the building meets the standards of the village, we should be more concerned about the variance than whether this building is legal and permitted or not.
That's what we're trying to accomplish, because the variation is in fact the question. Like I said, there's another forum for the discussion about the building and everything else, and we're not into that. That would require a lot of changes that are not on the order tonight. So is there anyone else that would like to? This was Chairman Brewer again. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Can I just quickly? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll wait.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Mahoney. I live at 554 Bonnie Dundee Road in East Dundee. I have in the past been a part of this P&Z Commission, so I appreciate everything that you're going through tonight with this consideration. I also walk along Ashland and Kenilworth pretty much 5 to 6 days a week, year round for the last 18 years. It's part of my route with my dogs. I have completely appreciated the way this whole property has been restored, the house, and as a neighbor, either on Maxwellton or in the neighborhood, to be able to have all of an appropriate estate zone approved building to store all of the equipment. We have struggled ourselves. We're on almost 2 acres. We have struggled ourselves because we take care of our property as well. And to have a building that reflects the aesthetics of the house with the stone surround and the placement is, I think I completely understand the hardship that it would be to try and move it to another part of the property. I'm having a difficult time squaring the theory and the philosophy of some of the people that are complaining, because they are trying to preserve these trees are incredible. They're really tall, and I can say that because I've cut down over 200 pine trees in my own yard that have been affected by the pine blight, and these are not of that variety, and they're beautiful. There's only a few. There's some in Maurice's yard as well, Maurice Martin's yard. They're spectacular species, and you don't see them around. Even when I'm looking at the aerial view, that's part of the packet, which was taken at night, or not at night, in the winter time. So all of the other deciduous trees, leaves are off, and you can clearly see this line of spruce trees that would be on the right-hand side, the little outcropping of the building on there. And they're substantial. They're really, really substantial. When you take into account, I would initially have concern about placing the building closer to the lot line or to the road. But when you look at the amount that they're asking for and what is left in the distance from the building itself to the paved road, I'm not concerned with it. This area has a lot of unusual buildings. Also down Kenilworth, there is kind of a log cabin, and where you're on a dirt road. So it's completely unusual to this area, but that doesn't take away the fact that this building is appropriate within the estate zoning codes. So, you know, that's pretty much all I have to say. I would look forward to it. I know Patience and Monty will do a beautiful job, just like they did restoring the house and trying to have it set within the surroundings. And I'm in favor of granting a variance. And that's all I have to say tonight.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, it's Christopher Pate again. I understand, by no means am I looking to infringe on something. If you're able to legally put it there, all I'm asking is you have an ordinance that's in place, follow the rules. If it's his property, that's great, but he needs to follow the rules just like everybody else does. So I'm asking you to deny the variance.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
I know there's someone on the phone, but they said that they can't unmute it for some reason. Is it *6 that you hit?
*6, yes. Did anyone get on?
I would like to say a few words, but I will wait for someone who did not talk yet.
Catherine, can you give the person who might be listening instructions on how to raise their hand if they want to talk?
Which individual? I'm sorry.
Can you give the audience instructions on how to raise their hand on Zoom in case there's someone who wants to talk but cannot be heard at the moment?
see. You would have to go and if everyone can see where participants are, if you click on that, it will bring up everybody, and next to your name, you can raise your hand there. I guess it varies depending on what kind of device you're on, though.
If you're dialed in by telephone and you press *6, it will unmute you. If you believe that your telephone line is muted and you'd like to offer some comments, please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Correct.
Sometimes that freezes and then that person would have to hang up and then call back in.
So I raised my hand. Can I say something?
Yes.
You don't sound very excited about it. But
No, go ahead.
I just have two quick points. So Mr. Mike and Patience, which are our neighbors, and we respect them. We respect everybody. It's not against anybody here. But with this, the size of this structure, how can they say that all the spruce trees that are beautifully aligned as you look at the house, how they can guarantee that those trees will truly save, considering the size of that structure? I think these trees may just be cut because you cannot fit this big structure within just a small area that we looked at the map and all the dimensions. So that's one point. Now, another one, people are mentioning village code. Now, I looked at the code and I did not see any exact dimensions, like allowable dimensions when it comes to a structure like this or a 3-car garage. The dimensions are just not there. So how can people say that the structure is within the village code when there is no dimensions, allowable dimensions, how big, regarding the size, how big it should be and how big it should not be? So this is, I just cannot comprehend this part, that I understand if you say it's according to the village code, but then you need to specify, tell us that it cannot be bigger, taller than such dimensions, this and this. So that's my question, and I just don't know the answer yet.
Okay, Chris, building official, Ranieri, would you like to give an answer there?
Yeah, the code, the zoning ordinance has what's called lot ratio coverage. So it determines how much of a lot can be covered by hard surfaces and buildings. And so being 2.4 acres, and I believe the lot coverage is 30%, they're well under the allowable square footage allowed.
But should we have a particular certain variance, or not variance, just a law that will say you cannot build something bigger than, let's say, 24 by 36, which is a standard.
That would be up to the village board if they wanted to amend the zoning code.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something we can't do because we have to follow what's written. It would have to be amended.
Now, is there a chance that this could be amended for the future, so people would know what they can build and what they cannot build?
I can't answer that.
This is Jennifer, the village administrator. We can certainly discuss what's in the code requirements. I just want to make sure that everyone's clear that this petitioner has already submitted for a building permit, which has been approved, but for the location and the variance request. But going forward for the future, the village board can consider changes to the village code as they do from time to time. And I anticipate they'll at least discuss it based on what they're hearing tonight, and then make a decision whether they need more restrictive measures in place or not.
Now, would that affect Mike's proposition of building this structure, or is it too late already?
It would not. He has already submitted for the permit, and the permit has been approved. It does meet all code requirements. And we've had, in addition to staff, we've had the village engineer and the village attorney review the code to ensure that it meets all code requirements. So any changes going forward would affect future buildings and construction, not Mike's that's being proposed tonight.
Oh, well, thank you so much, but
Sue Norton?
Yes. This is, Sue Norton?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, Sue, it's Maurice. I was just getting ready to speak for you, but I'll mute now.
Okay, thank you, Maurice. I apologize, I could not unmute. My phone was *6. We could not get into the Zoom link, so thank you, Maurice. Thank you, commissioners and everyone involved and all concerned citizens. I was assuming that this discussion was simply going to be on the variance. Obviously, it is not. I just want everyone to know that myself, Sue Norton, and Mark Langsfoss, owners of the property at 432 Max Welton, do not at all oppose the variance. We actually had the decency to address our neighbors regarding our concerns about the variance and the building. And we do understand that the location and the grade of the land merits the best position for that building, as well as saving the healthy trees in the lot. And since we've been going off subject of the variance all evening, I would just like to make a point that we don't live in a forest preserve, but we live in a residential area where people are allowed in outbuildings. Our neighbors do have 2.5 acres of property to maintain, and they do need certain equipment to keep the area maintained. They have done a very, very good job, have been very, very good neighbors, and we'd like to see them be allowed this variance. And I really think that's all I really need to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now, is there anyone?
Danuta had her first question mentioned, how can we guarantee that that our building wouldn't ruin the spruce trees? And Davy Tree said that spruce trees' roots don't go out very far. They only go out 5 feet beyond the drip line of the trees, which our foundation would not be cutting into those, so they wouldn't be at jeopardy of being lost even after the building was built.
Thank you. Anyone else who wants to speak on this?
John, I'll go now. After the last meeting, I went over and I met with Mike and Patience and kind of walked through everything that they're looking to do. And I believe they have done a nice job in fixing up the house and trying to make the property a better property. All that said, if all of our ordinances are being followed, then I have no issue with this. However, Mike, if you could answer a few questions for me. What land improvements will be done to accommodate the building? That area is quite low and collects a lot of water. So are you doing anything with the land so that you don't flood out?
We will. I mean, we will be putting the building at grade, so or wherever. Wherever the village would like it to be, whatever height.
Okay, and are the plans that were submitted, is that the structure that will be built?
Yes.
Okay. Chris, I would then call your attention. I believe that the building has a median height of 15 feet 5 inches, and that does not include the cupolas. So I don't know if he will eventually either need a height variance or change the plans somewhat. When I look at the plans have a wall height of 12 feet. Then there's an 8-foot header above, 8-inch header, sorry, not 8 foot, 8-inch header above. And then you've got the 12-4 pitch, which adds 66 inches from the eave to the peak. And if you take the median of that, which is 33 and 12-foot 8 puts you at 15-foot 5. So, and again, that's without the cupolas, and the cupolas need to be added in there as well. Mike, how will you be using the building?
Storage and as a partial garage.
Okay. I guess let me point out that our residential code does not allow for storage. Storage is a prohibited use in all residential districts. Will you
This isn't a commercial storage building, though. It's a personal building.
Right, but if you go to the uses within residential, storage is prohibited. The other questions that I have, and Maurice, I appreciate your comments and asking whether the building meets all of the village codes. And I'll turn this to staff or to the attorney. In what mechanism did the applicant combine the lots following the village ordinance? I guess let me say I had a conversation after viewing Engineer Hines' letter. I had a conversation with Joe in front of the Uncommon Palette, and we bantered back and forth. And one of my points was that Mike and Patience are not prohibited from selling any one of their 10 lots. And the village has no say whatsoever when land is sold. And Joe's response to me was, well, buyer beware. And that buyer's attorney should do their due diligence. And you know what? Those are excellent points, and I agree with each of them. I do believe that Mike and Patience should have gotten the same when they purchased, that they purchased 10 not legal non-conforming lots. They purchased 10 individual legal non-conforming lots, in that not any single one of them can house anything in the estate area, because not a single one of them alone meets the 43,560 square feet. And again, I have no issue if all this is done correctly, but I do believe that there needs to be a proper consolidation. And I can only find one ordinance in all of our village ordinances that combines lots, and that is our subdivision ordinance. And a subdivision ordinance requires a public hearing. And there has been no public hearing on the combination of these lots into one lot. These lots were subdivided in 1928 by Mr. McIntosh, and they have stayed that way. So the lot of record recorded with the recorder of deeds at Kane County is 10 individual lots. Mike and Patience were given a deed showing all 10 lots, but that was a deed of conveyance, not a deed establishing the lot area.
Attorney Smith, I think you could probably answer. There's a couple of things that we have asked of the attorney and of the engineer, and gotten responses back. But at the end of the day, if you're concerned that a lot will be essentially spun off and resold, Attorney Smith and I have had a conversation about the legal process we can do whereby we file an injunction. And Attorney Smith, maybe you can speak about that. I know it's not about the variance, but if this is the elephant in the room, I'd rather talk about it rather than set it aside.
Certainly. The simplest way to address the issue is to note that the definitions in the zoning ordinance are critical on this issue. The zoning ordinance controls the use of a lot, the three-letter word, L-O-T. That definition does not require that a lot on which a principal building and accessory buildings be built be a single, separately subdivided and platted lot of record. A lot of record is defined separately, and a lot of record is a parcel of land designated as its own separate lot on a plat of subdivision or consolidation which the village has approved. The zoning ordinance draws a distinction between the two. A lot, with not a lot of record, but just a simple lot, is one, it says, which is of record in the office of the Recorder of Deeds of Kane County, which may be composed of one or more lots of record. The definition goes on to say that the term lot is distinguished from the term lot of record as defined below. As such, the zoning ordinance looks to a zoning lot as what is set forth in the legal description in a deed that is of record with the recorder's office. I reviewed a deed dated that was recorded in 2012 for this property. As Mr. Scarpelli noted, the legal description of the zoning lot consists of 10 separate lots of record in what, as originally platted, was known as the Lakewood Lodge States subdivision. The Village of East Dundee Village Board has approved many variations for properties legally described in a similar way as this property, meaning that the variations were granted for multiple lots of record or for meets and bounds legal descriptions which do not tie back to a lot of record designation. It is my opinion, as well as that of the village engineer, the building official, Chris Ranieri, who spoke earlier, and Jennifer, that the subdivision matter is not a legal impediment to the consideration of this application. Don't confuse what I just said by saying that the variations must therefore be granted. Of course, as I noted earlier, the commission's deliberations and recommendation in the village board's decision must ultimately be based on the testimony, evidence, and standards in the ordinance, but the subdivision matter here is not a legal impediment to consideration of this matter.
So how do you prevent a property owner then from selling a non-conforming structure or a non-conforming lot that houses a structure?
Property owners are free to convey portions of their property in the state of Illinois, subject to the requirements of the local Plat Act. Local subdivision and zoning ordinances, as noted, I believe you noted previously, Mr. Scarpelli, do not create hurdles to sale. Instead, sellers typically in contracts will say that they warranty and represent to the buyer that the sale of the property will not violate local restrictions. And that is why legal counsel is retained as well to determine if the property to be conveyed is an appropriately, is property that is able to be conveyed. And title insurance companies make a lot of money signing off on endorsements for zoning purposes as well. And zoning companies, if you purchase that endorsement, will go to the municipality, confirm zoning, confirm appropriateness of the lot. These are very standard items.
Right. Okay. So then, for the sake of this application, are we looking at these 10 lots as if it were one lot?
Yes, the zoning lot is what is described in the deed. It is what is the parcel of land of record in the office of the Recorder of Deeds.
sure Frank just got shut down.
So then does that means that the the principal residence and this structure will sit on one lot?
I've provided you with the definition in the zoning ordinance, which defines the lot as being what is described in the office of the recorder of deeds. And yes, the zoning lot is different from the subdivision lot. I think that's the key here to understanding the difference. A lot of record is what's on a plat of subdivision. A lot is what is on a deed. And that's what we look at. This home that sits on a portion of the property, is there. The accessory structure would be on the same, what we could call zoning lot, what your zoning ordinance calls a lot.
Okay. And then I guess one other question for, I guess, staff is we have a application that's on file at the village that says a storage shed may not exceed 220 square feet. Why is that there if these folks can build a 2,100 square foot structure? I think maybe our form should be revised that there is no size limitation other than the 30%. Because the form.
A shed is considered a small structure in the building code. And our fees are structured in a way that a shed fee is only $50. And that's why it reflects that 200 square feet in the application.
Okay, but I know I'm not, it doesn't, I'll talk to you later about it. It doesn't apply to this application.
Okay, is there anyone else that wants to speak, ask questions?
Can I just say something very short in regards to what Mr. Scarpelli just said? Since we have very specific dimensions and square footage for a shed, how come we don't have those specific measurements, allowable dimensions for a 3-car garage or any structure that people would like to build?
30%, he said.
Again, that's a question that would need to be addressed to the village staff. If we have to revise the ordinances or as they are, I think the building official described where he was basing the information on. If there's not a definition of something in there, we have to go to whatever works. And I think that's the case here.
So can a new ordinance be worked on or proposed?
I would think it could be, but that would be something that would be up to the village administration, village administrators, and the village staff.
And then one more issue, because I am not very clear on that. The permit for the structure was approved. Now, does it mean that it was issued?
Chris?
It has not been issued. It has been approved.
So what is the difference between approving it and issuing it?
Well, the applicant would have to come in and pick up the permit and pay for the fees that for the permit to be issued.
So is it now put on hold, sort of, or not?
It's on hold until this variance issue is either approved or denied. And then the applicant can either get the permit and build the structure, if it's approved, the variance, then he'll use those setbacks. If it's not approved, then he has the option of following the code with the 35-foot setbacks.
Well, thank you for the explanation. I mean, it is a very emotional issue for us.
If if I may, Jennifer or Attorney Smith, if we were to grant the variance, are there conditions that we can put onto the property, like a berm, putting a row of trees, and anything like that? Can we condition this variance in any way?
And further, Frank and Chairman Brewer and all staff, would it be possible to ask for them to alter possibly the size and the appearance of their structure?
A facade that looks more home-like.
I don't know, Greg, if you're going to answer this question, but yes,
Sure.
any variance can be approved with conditions. I don't think there is a restriction on what type of conditions. I do know when this goes up to the village board, obviously those conditions could be altered, but you could certainly recommend approval with conditions. You can't deny it and also recommend conditions at the same time. Attorney Smith, do you want to add on to that?
Yes, I agree. And let me just make one point of procedure, Chair. We still are in the public hearing. I think it would be appropriate to make a motion and second and take a vote to close the public hearing so that deliberations would formally begin. But then to answer Commissioner Scarpelli's question, I agree with the village administrator. Absolutely, the PZC may, if it votes to recommend approval, include conditions which it thinks will make the application meet the standards in the ordinance. So if there are specific parts of the application which the commissioners believe are not in compliance, but for conditions, if you then introduce the conditions and it would gain your approval, you may add those to your recommendation, which is village administrator said the village board would get. They had the final say, but then the village board would know that you found those things important.
On behalf of the public, since we're still in the public hearing, I would just like to ask Mike specifically if that is a possibility that you would consider altering the size of the structure.
I mean, I would have been open to something, but I mean, the size of the structure is needed. And it would have been nice for residents to come and ask me that in person so we could talk about it.
Right, that's why I did it here. Thank you very much for answering.
Okay, can I hear a motion to close the public hearing, please?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Scarpelli,
Yes.
Holloman,
Yes.
Apke, Stenick,
Yes.
Schock,
Unmute, Howard.
Yes.
Musket,
Yes.
Brewer.
Yes. Okay, so now we, among the commissioners, do we have any discussion that we would like to participate in among the commissioners? Or questions to ask the staff?
Chairman Brewer, to Maurice Martin's question, what was the answer? If somebody could, or Mike, if you know, how far will the west edge of the building be from the east edge of Ashland Avenue?
Our lot line is 24 feet from Ashland. So at 24 feet. So the building will be 44 feet away from Ashland Avenue. And our lot line is 21 feet from Kenilworth. So the building will be 51 feet, 45 feet, whatever's on there.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else on the commission have any comments?
What's the code read for the tallest that you can have storage or utility shed structure allowable to be built on this lot.
15 feet.
It's not to exceed 15 feet as a medium height.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Chris.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Chris, I may be wrong, but I thought that it was 15 feet to the median of the roof, not the median of the building. So you've essentially got to get to the highest point before you hit the roof line, and then you pick the median of the roof. That's why from the roof, from the 12'8", the peak goes up 66 inches without the cupolas, but you take the median of that 33 inches. So you would add the 33 inches plus the 12'8", which gives you 15 feet 5 inches, again, without the cupolas.
Joe, do you want to chime in on this maybe?
Sure.
Hines?
Yeah, this is Joe Hines.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, guys. So the building's 30 feet wide, so you take half of that. That's 15 plus 1.5 foot overhang. So you're at 16.5. You divide that by 12 to get the pitch run and multiply that by 4, you get 5.5 feet. And then there's 6-inch fascia, so you would add another half a foot. That gets you 6 feet. Divide that by 2, you get 3, and add that to 12, you get 15.
Thanks for the math lesson.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission? Questions? Is everyone convinced there's a hardship existing here? Well, we're all being quiet, so I guess I'd ask someone to make a motion to approve or deny this variation request.
Chairman Brewer, I will make a motion to approve the variation request with the condition that along Ashland Avenue and along Kenilworth Avenue, other than at the driveway, at the approach entrance, that the resident would put some type of spruce tree or evergreen tree such that within 5 years, the growth of those trees would completely shield the building from the street.
Any other items you want to add? Okay, can I hear a second to Frank's motion?
I'll second it.
Catherine?
Scarpelli,
Yes.
Holloman,
Yes.
Apke,
Yes.
Denick,
Yes.
Schock,
No.
Musket,
Yes.
Brewer,
Yes. So the motion is carried. What was it, 6-1?
yes.
Next item would be to hear a motion to approve the findings of fact on this property location. If anyone has any comments or questions on that. And again, I don't know if we have to, finding of facts, we don't make subject to any other conditions, so.
I'll make a motion to approve findings of fact, to recommend approval of a request for a variance from section 157.031 A parens 6 parens little a parens of the zoning chapter of the East Dundee Village Code requiring the front yard setback in the E Estate District to be not less than 35 feet in depth.
I'll second that.
Question on that, do we need to note the conditions set forth?
Yes, the findings should incorporate the conditions. Staff can just be directed to modify the proposed findings to incorporate the condition.
And we would request that, okay?
Correct.
All right, what do you mean conditions?
I'll make an amendment to Sue's motion that the findings of fact would include the conditions of the natural tree blocking along Ashland and Kenilworth to be included as part of the findings of fact.
Okay.
So there needs to be a second to my amendment.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Now I think we need to vote on the amendment.
Scarpelli,
Yes.
Holloman,
Yes.
Apke,
Yes.
Stenick,
Yes.
Schock,
Yes.
Musket,
Yes.
Brewer.
Yes.
Now I think we have to vote on the original motion.
Yep.
Correct.
Was the original motion ever seconded?
Yes, it was.
Okay. All right. Once again, Catherine.
Scarpelli,
Yes.
Holloman,
Yes.
Apke,
Yes.
Stenick,
Yes.
Schock,
Yes.
Musket,
Yes.
Brewer.
Yes. Okay, is there any other business at this time?
Sure.
Okay, could we hear a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Scarpelli,
Yes.
Holloman,
Yes.
Apke,
Yes.
Stenick,
Yes.
Schock,
Yes.
Musket,
Yes.
and Brewer.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Good evening, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good night.
Good night.